Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Brittany Unfiltered. Thank you so much for being with me on this awesome Tuesday. I did want to get to one little housekeeping item before I forget and before we get into our topic, which is kind of heavy today. So just really quickly before we do all of that, we are now available on iTunes. I know I've been promising you guys for weeks that I would finally get that up and running, and it took a little bit longer than I expected, but we are available on iTunes. So just go to iTunes, type in Brittany Unfiltered. It should be the one and only thing that pops up. I'm pretty sure there's no other Brittany Unfiltered floating around out there, but we're available on that in case you missed the live premiere at 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and YouTube. You can just go there, download it to your smartphone, and listen to it whenever you feel like it. So it's just another way for you to enjoy the show. In case you need it. And if you missed me last week, it's because we were on our baby moon, so I wasn't here. I told you guys a couple weeks ago that we were going to be gone last week and had an awesome time. So thank you guys so much for those of you who were supporting us and praying for us. It was kind of a little bit of a last hurrah, just sort of a time to get away and relax and sort of the calm before the storm. I don't know if that's a good way of putting it, but from what I understand, babies don't sleep a ton and they tend to cry and stuff. So it was a really awesome, relaxing time to kind of get away before the little guy comes in a few weeks. And it was only minorly uncomfortable at 33 weeks pregnant to go down south and to hang out on the beach for a little bit. I did figure out, though, if you ever need it for future reference, beach chairs, not comfortable in the third trimester, not even a little bit. So don't even try with the beach chairs unless you want to bring your own like ergonomic one or something. That part sucked, but everything else was great. But I'm glad to be back with you guys this week to talk about something very near and dear to my heart. Kind of leads me into our topic that we're going to be going through today, which is some recent news in the pro-life movement. Some recent advancements, some stuff that happened this week, and some stuff that happened last week that I wasn't here to talk about, but I really, really wanted to address. And I'm going to go ahead and lead this off, just being completely honest here, because I don't know how else to be. And that is that we're going to be talking about some news, but also some sort of sensitive aspects of the pro-life movement, of the abortion topic, and that whole issue. And in the past, I've addressed these issues. In the past, I've been pretty honest about what I believe, and I don't regret that, even when it has cost me followers. And I'm not going to regret that this time. I'm just going to be totally honest right up front with you guys. I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to play around with this issue. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think that there is a boldness and an energy in the pro-life movement right now that I've been praying to see for a very, very long time. And I think it's time to stop mincing words on this topic. I think it's time to start taking some hard stands and to start telling some hard truths because, and I typically hate this phrase because I think it gets overused and it's very hyperbolic in many situations. But this is an issue in which literally people are dying. Abortion kills human beings. It kills them by the thousands every single day, every single week, every single year. Tens and hundreds of thousands of people die. All right, so I'm not going to sort of tiptoe around this issue. We're going to be talking about some hard truths, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I believe and exactly why I believe it. And quite frankly, if it upsets you, if it bothers you, we can disagree on things. We can have discussions on things. I'm perfectly happy to have conversations. But if this causes you to click the unfollow button, I'm just going to say sorry, not sorry. Because this is something that is so incredibly important in our generation. And I think we have a real opportunity coming up to address some of this stuff and to make some real changes. So on that note, I'm going to start with a happy topic, which is what happened in Georgia today. Super awesome. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp actually signed the state's heartbeat bill, which if you follow pro-life news or really the news at all over the last few months, this is a bill that would ban elective abortions, after a fetal heartbeat can be detected. So that's usually around week 6 of a pregnancy. We saw our son's heartbeat for the first time at, I think it was 7 weeks and 5 days. And it had already been beating by that point, but that was the first time that we could get in to see our doctor. So this, I'm actually going to show you what he looked like. So this is the first ultrasound picture of our little dude, and when we first saw the heartbeat. So as you can see, he kind of looks like a little jelly bean. Matter of fact, that's what I called him before we knew if he was a boy or a girl. I called him Jelly Bean because that's exactly what he looked like. And in the middle there, that little kind of blobby thing in the middle, on the video monitor, you could see this little pulse, and that was the heartbeat. And it was the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. So right there in the middle of that tiny little jelly bean looking thing was a heartbeat. The ultrasound technician did not call it, an embryonic electrical pulse or anything else. She said, "This is your baby's heartbeat." And it was just going a mile a minute. And of course I'm crying and his dad's tearing up. And it was just so wild and so cool. And there's no denying at that point, you are looking at life. You are looking at life. You can see it right there on the monitor. So a heartbeat bill is one of the most common sense pieces of legislation that could ever be passed. Now, of course, as pro-lifers and as people that understand the biology and the science behind life, we know that this is not when a human life begins, okay? So even before this point, even before there's a measurable heartbeat, from day one, that little baby, from the moment of conception, has a unique DNA strand, a uniquely human DNA strand that is different from everybody else's on the Earth planet. Okay, so we understand that it is human even before this point, but a heartbeat bill is a really good step in the right direction because it uses a measurable point, right? A heartbeat, which is generally when we say that a person dies. We would generally say when your heart stops beating and we can't bring it back, you're dead. Then why wouldn't it be that a human being with a heartbeat is considered alive? Regardless of its size, regardless of its location, you have a heartbeat. So the heartbeat bill is a huge, huge step in the right direction. Now, of course, it's going to get challenged in court, which we all know and expected. It's already been challenged in several of the other states where it is passed, and federal judges have put a stay on that. But it's, like I said, a huge step in the right direction for two reasons. First of all, it affirms the life of the unborn child and gives protections to them. The other thing that it does, as many pro-lifers will point out, is that it gets it into the courts, which is kind of one of the ultimate goals here, is to push this issue all the way up through the courts with the goal of getting to the Supreme Court to challenge Roe versus Wade. So unashamedly, I'll be completely honest with you, that's exactly what we want to see. That's exactly what we want to see because Roe versus Wade was one of the most terrible decisions. It's incredibly unconstitutional, and we want to see that challenged. This is a good way to do that. Governor Brian Kemp recognizes that. All right, he already has admitted that this is going to probably end in a legal battle, at least for the state of Georgia, and is going to need to get pushed beyond that point. But as he said today, which I thought was such a wonderful way of putting it, this isn't about doing what is easy. This is about doing what is right. Okay, so that being said, kind of leads me into my first topic that I sort of wanted to talk about that I know can get a little bit touchy. All right, and that is Georgia's law includes a rape and incest clause, as well as a clause for life of the mother. So if a pregnancy jeopardizes the mother's life, which is a whole other topic that we have talked about before, then you can get an abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected. It also has a clause for children conceived in rape and incest, that this law does not apply to abortions in that case. If the rape and incest has a police report attached to it, by the way. So there is a caveat there. But this is an important distinction because some heartbeat bills in other states don't have that clause. Ohio is one of them. Ohio does not include a clause for rape or incest. It does not have that exception built into the law. It does for life of the mother, but not for rape and incest. And I've seen this kind of going around quite a bit because this is something that, again, I talked about this a few weeks ago, and we kind of talked a little bit about some of the more extreme arguments that abortion advocates like to throw in pro-lifers' face as sort of these gotcha questions that, are supposedly supposed to render us completely without an answer to them. And rape and incest is always pushed as one of them. So I'm going to tell you straight up why I do not like rape and incest clauses in anti-abortion bills. I cannot stand them. And I think that they are intellectually dishonest. As awesome as I think Georgia's heartbeat bill is, and as great a step in the right direction as I think it is, I cannot get down with the rape and incest clause. Here's why. The entire premise of the pro-life argument, the entire premise of a heartbeat bill, the entire premise of advocating for lives of the unborn is that we believe life has value simply for existing. Not because of its circumstances, not because of its socioeconomic level, not because of its size, not because of its location, no other qualifiers. Life is valuable and worth protecting because it exists. A rape or incest clause takes that away. Okay? A rape or incest clause puts a qualifier dependent on an admittedly extreme and tragic circumstance, but it puts a qualifier on when life is valuable and worth protecting and when it is not. All right? There is no scientific difference between a baby conceived in a loving monogamous marriage to a wealthy couple or a child conceived in a tragic rape situation. The situation may differ. The tragedy may completely differ. The amount of care that woman receives may differ. The criminality may differ. There's a whole lot of things that differentiate those two situations. But the value of the life of the child does not. The science behind that child does not. The fact that it is a child does not. Those are exactly the same. So if we are going to say that life is inherently valuable because it is life, then that has to be consistent across the board. If you start making exceptions based on certain characteristics or certain qualifiers, then you kind of rip away your entire foundation for making that argument. Now, that is not to say that pro-lifers, particularly those like me who do not like rape and incest clauses, are okay with rape. Nobody is okay with rape except rapists. Nobody is okay with incest except for people who are engaging in incest. That has nothing to do with it. You can value the life of a child while still fundamentally having a problem with the circumstances in which they were brought about. The two are completely different. And I think that a lot of abortion advocates intentionally conflate that because they think that it's kind of this gotcha moment, and it's not. Because that, you want to talk about intellectually dishonest, that's intellectually dishonest. Nobody has any love for rape. That's not the point. The point isn't about undoing the rape. The point isn't about addressing the rape or the criminality of that. All of those are separate issues. The point is what to do with a child, a living child who has inherent value. Okay? They don't get to choose how they're brought into this world. They don't get to choose how they were conceived. That's a completely separate issue. So again, this idea that if you disagree with rape and incest clauses because you value the life of that child, you must be okay with rape and incest is absolutely ridiculous. I think they know it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, I believe that we should provide top levels of care to women who are in that situation. And I'm not saying that it is not horrifically tragic. But that's separate from whether or not a child is valuable, even if they are conceived in a less than a less than ideal situation, regardless of what that may be. Okay, so again, this idea that in order to be pro-life, you have to be able to do away with rape and incest first. It's kind of like saying that you can't be against robbery unless you come up with the magical solution to solve all robberies. That's ridiculous. We all understand that robbery exists. We have a penal code that actually criminalizes robbery. All right, so to say, well, you must be perfectly okay with that, that's insane. Nobody would ever say that. It's the same exact thing as when people like to shove in pro-lifers' faces, well, unless you can solve rape and you can solve incest and you can keep all women from being unhealthy during pregnancy and you can ensure that every single baby is born into a loving home where there's no poverty and they don't have any disabilities and they're happy forever and ever and ever until you can solve all the world's problems, you can't be pro-life. That is nuts. And that is not the point. The point is that life is valuable and worthy of protecting. And an unborn child, regardless of its location, is a living human being. Science dictates it. Biology dictates it. The heartbeat on the monitor dictates it. And that is what bills like this advocate for. So, That was some happy news. A little caveat onto the clause that I do very much disagree with there. But we're going to move on now to something that's not quite as happy, but we're going to talk about it. It's actually from last week. I just didn't get a chance to address it, but I really, really want to. And that is this clip from Alabama State Representative John Rogers. You've probably seen it, but I'm going to go ahead and show it here just for posterity. And we're going to talk about this because it just absolutely blew my mind when I heard it last week. So check it out.
Some kids are unwanted. So you kill them now, kill them later. You bring them in the world unwanted, unloved. Then you send them to the electric chair. So you kill them now, kill them later. But the bottom line is that I think we should be making this decision.
Yeah. So kill them now or kill them later. That's apparently what John Rogers thinks. He's perfectly fine with killing children who are, quote, as he says, unwanted. He also has a problem apparently with retarded children or children with disabilities, and thinks that you can just completely do away with them, and is honestly, this is one of these things where there are a lot of times where I feel like I've got something really intelligent to say on a specific topic. This is not one of them. It's not. This is one of those where I'm just at a complete and total loss for words. The callousness with which he said this is mind-blowing. But I think it's incredibly important to talk about for one specific reason, and that is this. They're admitting it now. And I think that's very important. I think it's important that the truth is coming out, because for many years, post Roe versus Wade, you had kind of this, there were sort of these foggy way of talking about abortion. Okay, so you had like the kind of the clump of cells argument, which of course has now been debunked because we know so much more about science and about biology and about how life begins and about pregnancy and childbirth than we did 50 something odd years ago. So you kind of can't do the clump of cells argument. The abortion arguments are completely falling apart. So now what you end up having is guys like this, like John Rogers, who come out and say, yeah, we're killing babies. We're going to kill them now or we're going to kill them later. Yeah, we want to kill children with disabilities. Yes, we want to kill children who are unwanted. Yes, we are perfectly fine with third trimester abortions all the way up to the moment of birth. We're starting to see these radical ideas that, frankly, they're not new. Okay, this is what the abortion advocates always wanted. This is what the abortion industry profits off of. This is how they make their money. This is something that has always existed. They're just now having to verbalize it because they have nothing left. All right, they have nothing left. There are no good science-based or ethics-based or morality-based arguments for abortion. You can't even try to cloud it at this point. It is so incredibly obvious that what abortion does is it kills a human being. So I will at least give Rogers props for admitting it. All right, so I will at least say now they're admitting it. I think another thing that it does is it indicates just how incredibly scared the abortion industry and their supporters are. Here's a tweet from Planned Parenthood, for example, that I came across I think it was yesterday, and it admits exactly what they believe. So I'm going to go ahead and read it here. They said, "We are dangerously close to a post-Roe world. It's clear that anti-abortion politicians will say and do anything, including lie about abortion, to put this crucial healthcare out of reach for millions of people nationwide." Okay, let's dissect that. Yes, I believe we are close to a post-Roe world. Thank God I think we are close to a post-Roe world. Now, post-Roe does not necessarily solve every single issue. Again, overturning Roe versus Wade kicks the abortion debate back to the states. So there's still battles to be fought there because ultimately the battle lies in the heart, right? Until we begin recognizing the inherent value of human life, there will always be a fight there. But I do think that they're at least admitting that here this is something that is being pushed. That we are close to a post-Roe world. I hope to God that is true. But of course, they say that we are dangerously close to a post-Roe world. To them, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. I also find it interesting that Planned Parenthood has been accusing anti-abortion politicians, with lying about abortion, but you notice how they never actually clarify how anybody's lied about abortion. Kind of like when they say, one example, for instance, that I've seen here recently is when we talk about third trimester abortion laws. Of course, New York came out, Massachusetts has come out, Illinois has come out, Kathy Tran in Virginia came out as supporting third trimester abortion laws. Now, of course, there was an outcry from pro-lifers about how horrific that was, that even the vast majority of pro-choice Americans don't support abortions in the third trimester. And immediately what you had was abortion advocates in the abortion industry coming out and saying, well, they're lying about it. But they never clarified what we're saying that's a lie. Is it a lie that it's a human being? Is it a lie that that baby is viable? Is it a lie that the vast majority of them are elective? Is it a lie that 13,000 of them occur every single year, according to the CDC? None of those things are lies. So when Planned Parenthood throws this out there that they lie about abortion, but they never actually say what lies we're telling. And I would really like somebody from Planned Parenthood to come out and give me the lies. Tell me exactly what lies pro-lifers are telling about abortion. I would really like to know, because they haven't really given any examples. They just kind of throw that out there as sort of this catch-all, but they never clarify what they mean. So again, I think what you have here is the abortion industry and abortion supporting politicians like John Rogers, who are now coming out and admitting what we have all known, which is that they are fine with abortion. They are fine with abortion up to any level. They are fine with abortion for any reason. And they know that it kills children. And they are targeting unwanted children. They are targeting children with disabilities. And frankly, the definition of that is genocide. So at least, like I said, they're coming out and admitting it. But then you've got people like good old CNN's Chris Cuomo, and I'm going to play another clip here. He had on Christine Quinn. She is a CNN contributor. She's a former speaker for the New York City Council, and he also had Rick Santorum on I guess the two of them were supposed to debate, but Chris Cuomo kind of got all up into it. I'm going to play a clip. It's about 2 minutes long, but I'm going to play the whole thing because I think it's important. And Christine Quinn's response to Rick Santorum arguing that an unborn child is in fact human life. So we're gonna play that real quick, and then we're gonna talk about it.
This is a human life that
not
is
a legal
being
fact.
extinguished.
It is not a legal
It's a
fact.
Do you disagree that at the moment of conception, that child is human and alive?
That's its viability. It is a viable human being. It is not recognized under our law as a person under the law.
Answer the question.
You know what the answer is.
Is it biologically a human life?
No.
You know what the answer is.
I do. It's in every biological touchwork in the world. At conception, that is a human life.
The only
you
thing-
ignore
it
that
is
reality.
not. That
You
is
guys
not
talk
the
about being the party of science.
Listen, hold on.
This is so
That is
a-science.
not.
There is
this
no
is,
question.
That
This
is
is not
not
reality,
science.
guys.
Hold on,
That
hold on a
is
second.
not
Let me just set the
It
table.
is true.
Hold on a second.
No, it's not.
Calm down.
It's
Calm
not
down.
it's not a
Just
belief.
calm
It's a
down.
fact.
The
It's a
only
fact.
thing that
No,
can
it's
be
not.
created by two human beings is a human being. Period. The law
what are we
recognizes
killing?
a person with rights at a certain standard.
So
you are
you're-
conflating the two.
okay,
You're doing
Chris,
it for convenience.
before
That's
that-
okay. But either
before
you
that-
respect the law or you don't.
Okay, before that thing is a thing, before that thing is a person, what is it?
What do you mean? What is it?
What do you
What's
mean?
that thing
There are all
in the
these
womb that
different
you're killing?
stages
What
of
is it?
cellular development.
But what is it?
Go Google it.
So it's
what I'm
called
saying
property.
is,
Rick,
you
So it's
either
property of
accept
the
the
woman.
law or you don't.
Rick,
I'm okay with that.
So I'm just asking, Chris, is it the property of the woman at that point? It's not a person, it's the property
It's
of a woman.
not.
Her body is always her property.
Okay,
Yes.
so but that's a unique
Rick,
human
you-
being inside that woman.
No,
so
there
is that
is
that
not.
woman
Rick.
the property of a woman?
Rick.
So you can do whatever you want
Rick,
with it?
it is
So let me
part-
ask you this
Rick,
question,
can you
Christine. Let me
stop
ask you
for
the
1
question.
second? No, because
So,
you're not
Christine,
Chris Cuomo. You don't get to ask the questions. Let me just say.
If the woman who was carrying that child, because let's say she was blind, and she decided she wanted to have a blind baby too, so she could inject that baby with something that would blind the child,
Rick,
not kill it, just blind it.
Rick,
Would that be okay?
Rick,
would you
you
say
are
that's
bringing
okay?
up.
Look,
you are
I'm going to go to
bringing up-
Christine on the point, but I'll tell you what's not okay. I think perverting fact patterns, perverting realities and trying to demonize what people do. You guys make it sound like this is cheaper than condoms. This is easier than condoms.
Right.
So just go abort your babies. These are painful decisions for these women. These are things they live with for the rest of their lives.
Chris.
Yeah, I know, and they think about it, and they think about it in a way that you never will, Rick. So you're projecting all these emotions and sensibilities on ethics on people in a decision you'll never make.
And Rick, let me just say, when a woman gets pregnant, that is not a human being inside of her. It's part of her body.
Okay, so as you can see, kind of a heated debate there. And again, it just exposes how incredibly baseless the arguments are for abortion. Here you've got Chris Cuomo, who, frankly, he does this all the time on a variety of issues, not just abortion, but absolutely avoiding any question of whether or not this is a human being worthy of dignity and respect. He will even go so far as admitting that it's a human being, but he tries to make this point that, well, yes, just because it's a human being doesn't mean it's worthy of rights. We confer rights at a certain point, but he can't really say when that point is. So he's all over the place with his argument, and he's trying to sound intellectual. He's trying to sound like he knows where he stands, but even he clearly doesn't. And then over on the other side here, you've got Christine Quinn, who actually comes out and says that this is not a human being. That a fetus, for lack of a better word, with a heartbeat and its own unique human DNA that is moving is not a human being. I mean, that is the level of absolute dishonesty that we're dealing with here. I don't care if you are as pro-choice as the day is long. There are certain facts that cannot be denied. The basic science cannot be denied. This is a life by any definition of the word. Okay, so the fact that we are even arguing this point, the fact that a CNN anchor is splitting hairs over whether or not this is a human being or whether or not we can kill them or whether or not they have rights, the fact that we're even having this debate in 2019 when we perform surgeries in utero on unborn children, when we can save babies earlier than we have ever been able to save them in human history. I mean, a baby born at 23, 24 weeks into a pregnancy can sometimes be saved at this point, and medical science is going to keep working that back. I mean, what about when we get to the point where medical science can save a 6-week-old embryo? I'm not saying when we'll get to that point, and I know we're getting into kind of playing God territory here, but what then? When we keep working the age of viability further and further back because medicine is advancing and we're able to give life-saving treatment, what is going to be the excuse then? Okay, because a baby born at 24 weeks, 25 weeks now has a better chance of survival than it did even a few years ago, much less think about 100 years ago when there was absolutely no chance that they would have survived. So if you start basing rights and you start basing value on things like points of viability or location or physical disabilities, you're getting into some seriously nuanced territory here, and it's incredibly dangerous, because then what's to say that somebody who gets in a car accident and becomes a quadriplegic has rights? So, I mean, Chris Cuomo is just the level of mental gymnastics that they are trying to jump through here. Again, go to show what I said before, which is that I truly, truly believe the abortion industry is completely and totally in over their head and scared out of their minds, because people are starting to figure this out. All right, people are starting to figure out the end game here. They're starting to figure out not only the science that we've known for a long time, but what the ultimate end game is for the abortion industry. This is a money maker. Okay, it is a money maker, and they are perfectly fine with killing children up through the 3rd trimester if it makes them money. All right, so this is what happens, and again, I'm going to play yet another little clip here. This is what happens when you push back. So we've now kind of exposed what they believe. We've exposed how far they're willing to go in their theories. This is what happens when you disagree. This is Pennsylvania State Representative Brian Sims, who you may have seen going around social media recently. He filmed himself harassing pro-life women on the street outside of a Planned Parenthood clinic, including a group of young teenagers and a little old lady. Check this out.
Representative Brian Sims here, and I am outside the Planned Parenthood at southeastern Pennsylvania. Oh, no, they're leaving now. What we've got here is a bunch of protesters. A bunch of pseudo-Christian protesters who've been out here shaming young girls for being here. And so here's the deal. I've got $100 to anybody who will identify any of these three.
So we're
I'm going to donate to
just
Planned
praying
Parenthood.
for the babies.
I'm going to donate to Planned Parenthood. So look, a bunch of white people standing up in front of a Planned Parenthood, shaming people. There's nothing Christian about what you're doing. Nothing Christian at all about what you're doing. Planned Parenthood of southeastern Pennsylvania. They have to deal with people like this every single day. They deal with people out here every single day telling others what's right for their bodies. But we're not going to let them get away with it. Absolutely not. No, ma'am. Don't hide. Don't hide. You're publicly protesting women coming to a Planned Parenthood. It's something they have a right to do. Don't hide from it. Don't hide from it. Have the courage of your broken convictions if this is what you're going to do. Everyone, this is what they deserve and this is what they need.
Yep. Good old Brian Sims, whose name, by the way, I had never heard before a couple of days ago, and I really otherwise don't care who he is or what he thinks, because he seems like a real peach, let me tell you. But apparently his idea of courage and standing up for women's rights includes taking his smartphone, going out into the streets, and accosting elderly women and teenage girls. So that's super fun. Apparently this is what courage means to pro-abortion guys, which again, so I was kind of given to understand that if you're a white male in particular, if you're a male in general, but especially if you're a white male, because that always seems to be a qualifier, you're not allowed to have an opinion about abortion. I thought that was a strictly women's issue and you're not allowed to speak about it, but apparently those rules completely fly out the window if you're a liberal guy, and it's perfectly fine to harass women if they are conservative or they are pro-life. So I find it interesting that the rules of the game have completely changed for somebody like old Brian here, who has absolutely no qualms whatsoever about taking his phone and shoving it into people's faces. I especially appreciate the moment where he starts offering money to anybody online who can expose the identity of teenage girls. That was a really interesting moment as well. So apparently not only are we going to go to accost people in the streets for simply having an opinion. By the way, these people were not protesting. That's the other thing. They weren't like waving signs around. They weren't screaming at women walking into the clinic. They were peacefully praying in front of this clinic. That's all they were doing. Were peacefully praying. But apparently you can't do that without a pro-abortion dude getting all up in your face in Pennsylvania. So that's, and here's, not to get off topic here, but do you guys remember when Nick Sandmann with Covington Catholic just got reamed out in the media for smiling at a Native American man? Y'all remember that? And it made tons of headlines and it was all over the place, and the media ran with it so wildly that some of them ended up having to come out and apologize because they got the story completely wrong. But they went after him because he was A, wearing a MAGA hat, which, as we all know, is the crime of the century these days, and B, was at a pro-life event. He was at the March for Life back in January, which I went to. It was a peaceful event. It always is. Some of the most wonderful and respectful and peaceful people I've ever met show up to this event every single year. About 500,000, or about 500,000 of them, by the way, in case you didn't know that from the news. But Nick Sandmann was there with his group of Catholic high schoolers. They had a group down there, and because he was pro-life and because he was wearing a MAGA hat, all he did was smile at a Native American man who got up in his face and was beating a drum, and he got called all kinds of names. He got doxxed. There were bomb threats made against the school. There were death threats made against him. The media absolutely ran with it. Here you have an elected official, not to mention a white guy, which again, I have no problem with. But to the left, I thought that was supposed to be a symbol of sit down and shut up, and you're not supposed to talk about anything. Here you have an elected white male official verbally harassing young, underage teenage girls and elderly women for peacefully praying, and you don't see a word from the media. It's not on any of the news channels. Nobody's having panels on CNN to debate whether or not this is acceptable. You get no pushback from it whatsoever. If that is not wildly hypocritical, I don't know what is. Okay, so you're supposed to support women. You're supposed to listen to women. You're supposed to believe all women. You're supposed to support women's rights. Only women are allowed to have opinions on this issue because it only affects women. Unless you're a liberal man, then you can harass women as long as you're on the abortion side of the fence. So again, this really, it just goes to show this isn't about women. This isn't about women. If this were about women, then the left would have come out and defended these women and their opinions, regardless of whether they agreed with them or not, because it's about the woman, right? It's about respecting women and their space and their opinions, especially on an issue that is a woman's issue, which, again, have serious disagreements with. Show me the woman that can get pregnant on her own, and I'll show you the woman that's allowed to dictate the rules for all the rest of us. It's never happened in the history of mankind. But that's what you have here. You have the left not rushing in any way, shape, or form to the defense of these women. But we're going to get a chance to find out what Brian Sims really thinks. We're going to get a chance this Friday, as a matter of fact. I don't think I'm going to be able to go, only because I've reached the stage where it's really, really difficult for me to travel. But I did want to bring this to y'all's attention. In case you haven't heard, a bunch of pro-life groups are organizing a rally outside of Planned Parenthood. It's Planned Parenthood Southeastern Pennsylvania, and it is in Philadelphia. It's the same one that Brian Sims was outside of, accosting all of these women. And they're actually going to be holding a massive rally this Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you can go, you need to go. You have got to go. Seriously, I think this is one of the most important, not only important issues, but important demonstrations, because I think, and this kind of leads me to where I sort of want to wrap up today, I think this is the issue of our time. It's why I have spent so long talking about it. It's why we're going to keep talking about it in the future. We're going to hammer this thing home, because this is the defining issue of our generation. And I have said this before, this is kind of the second sort of sensitive thing that tends to get people all riled up, but I'm going to say it again. You cannot be conservative if you are not pro-life. You can be a Republican and be pro-choice. You can be a libertarian and be pro-choice. You can certainly be a Democrat and be pro-choice. You can be a whole lot of things and be pro-choice. But you cannot be a conservative if you are pro-choice. And here's why. The pro-life issue, respect for the inherent dignity of life, again, not based on any qualifiers, not based on any characteristics, not based on your hierarchy or what anybody else thinks of you. The inherent dignity of your life simply for existing is the bedrock for all the rest of our rights. If you do not have the right to life, then it does not matter if you have the right to arm yourself. If you do not first have the right to life, it does not matter if you have the right to worship the way that you want to, or to speak what you want to, or to have freedom of the press. If you do not have the right to life, none of your other rights matter. That is the bedrock that these are based on. If you take away someone's right to life, if you say that we now get to be the judge and jury of whether or not you even deserve to come into this world, what does it matter if you have other rights? And what is our grounds for saying that people have rights if they don't first have the right to life? And I believe that this is the defining issue of our generation. It is the defining issue of our society. How we treat the most vulnerable and helpless among us, including preborn children, defines who we are. It defines what we believe. It defines where we're going, and it defines what we value as a society and what rights we do believe people have. This is the defining issue, and I believe we're getting into some defining moments, and we need to stop just putting lip service behind this. Right? It's all fine, well, and good to say that you're pro-life. It's all fine, well, and good to tweet about it. Lord knows I do. It's all fine, well, and good to say that we are pro-life. But what are we doing about it? Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973. It's 2019, and we still kill upwards of 1 million unborn babies every single year, and that's just in this country alone. We still give over $500 million to Planned Parenthood every single year to kill 330,000 children. And that doesn't include all the other little abortion clinics that are receiving government money that aren't affiliated with Planned Parenthood. They tend to be the big boogeyman because they're the largest single provider, but they provide 1/3 of all abortions. The other 2/3 are provided by smaller clinics, many of which are also receiving taxpayer money. It is time to stop talking about it and to start doing something about it, to start actively putting actions behind our words. This is a great way to do that. I know that not everybody can make it. I completely understand that, as you can tell. But if you can be at a rally like this, go. It is at Friday at 11 a.m. in Philadelphia. If you cannot, then find another way to get involved. Let's stop talking about this. Find a crisis pregnancy center that you can donate to, or even better yet, donate your time. Go and volunteer to help out. Okay, find a march or some sort of a demonstration somewhere close to you where you can make your voice heard. Make sure that your lawmakers, make sure that people like Brian Sims don't feel comfortable going out and harassing people in the streets. I'm not saying we should threaten him right back. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not Maxine Waters out here. But we should make sure that our elected lawmakers understand where we stand on this issue and that we value life and that we are willing to put action behind that. Okay? That we are willing to not simply say it and then when they do the opposite, we'll just roll over and take it. We need to start pushing back in absolutely just tangible ways. So that's kind of where I'm going to wrap it up today. Again, I know that we spent a lot of time on this one topic. We're probably going to do so again in the future, and I'm not going to apologize for that because I do think that it is one of the fundamental issues of this day. But make sure that you are back with me next Tuesday. Hopefully I'll be here unless some unforeseen circumstance happens. But every single Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, live on Facebook and YouTube. Also on iTunes. I didn't forget to mention it that time. On iTunes, you can download episodes of the show in podcast form. Listen to them wherever you go. I will see you back next time. Have a great week.